Hello and welcome to our Called series. My name is Brian Hendricks. I'm the site director here at Destiny School of Leadership, and we're excited to come alongside you and help equip you to make the best decisions possible when it comes to your education. That's what this series is going to focus on. It's going to be talking about the education decision-making process and navigating higher education. There's a lot of people who feel like God has a call in their life. They're aware that God has called them to something more. Maybe it's just the next step in their education. Maybe it's going back to school. For some people, it could be starting something brand new, but there's challenges that we're going to face. And there's a lot of poor choices that we can make in navigating this process. Let's talk about some of the common mistakes that people make in higher education. One that maybe seems the most obvious, at least it's in the news a lot, it's the excessive student debt that a lot of people accumulate when they're navigating their education journey. The average cost of education continues to go up. The average four-year degree at a public institution costs around $80,000. The average four-year degree at a private institution is up north of $170,000 for that same 4 years. And so people are graduating with more and more student debt. And this debt can be absolutely crippling. There's an opportunity cost that comes with this debt, where not only are we now forced to pay off our education process, but it's holding us back from investments that we could be making into ourselves, into our life beyond that four-year or more degree. And so we want to be very conscious and thoughtful, very strategic about our education investment. And that's a phrase you're going to hear me make a lot. It's an education investment. We want to reframe our thinking, because when we think about things in terms of investment, we're always going to be thinking about the end goal, and that's to be making a return on that investment. What's the purpose of this education journey? So back to the mistakes and challenges. The first one is accumulating debt. Another one that I see a lot of people make is just avoiding education. Maybe they had a negative past experience, or school wasn't their thing. What people sometimes fail to realize by avoiding education is that they could be limiting themselves in a major way in terms of their lifetime earning potential. There are tons of success stories of people who didn't go to college, or people who didn't get a degree and are wildly successful. And that's absolutely true. But if you look at the average across all people surveyed, the lifetime earning potential on average, or the lifetime earning capacity on average of somebody with a degree, is over $1 million more than somebody who didn't get a college degree. So that's a major sacrifice, or a major obstacle that somebody's going to face if they choose to go forward and not get a degree. And not just limited earning potential, but they could be limiting what fields and careers they could go into, because regardless of how the landscape might change and shift, a lot of careers still require some sort of additional education beyond high school. You know, to the person who had a negative past experience, I think a lot of it has to do with their education environment. There's a lot that we can discover about ourselves, to learn about our learning styles and understand ourselves better, to choose an educational experience that's going to best equip us. If I'm somebody who doesn't do well in a classroom, how can I learn outside the classroom? What types of educational opportunities, degree programs, certificates can I get that are going to fit my learning style, that are going to emphasize experience over traditional classroom environment. So think about that as you navigate that process. Rather than avoid education altogether, challenge yourself to always be learning, but finding the way that you learn best and choosing an educational path that's going to set you up for success. Beyond that avoidance, or sometimes behind that avoidance, are two things that stand in people's way. One is a lack of vision. If they don't know why they're getting an education in the first place, they could end up in both those scenarios: avoiding education because they don't have any sense of purpose, or they could end up with a ton of debt because they went into college or went into a degree program, they bounced around, and they never found their fit. So lack of vision is a death sentence in education. Where there is no vision, the people perish. And so we need to start with the end in mind. And that idea of starting our education journey with the end in mind is kind of the final point, the final challenge or mistake that people make, is they navigate the education process backward. I'm guilty of this myself. When I went to school, I started by choosing a college. Then I showed up in my advising process, and I decided on a major. So first I chose the school, then I chose the major, and then I got all done, and I was trying to figure out, what can I do with this? So career was the last piece of that puzzle. I went college, major, career. I think that process is absolutely backward. And what I want to do is equip you to make the best decisions for your education and make the best decisions for your career and your calling. And we're going to do that by starting with the end in mind. I think the decision-making process should start with career. Go career, then based on that career, figure out what major, what program is going to set you up best for that career. So career, major, then college, because you can choose the institution based on who has that major, who's focused on that, and who's going to set you up for success in your chosen field. And I want to get something else out on the table. This decision-making process is not just for high school students or recent grads. These decisions and this process is just as important for somebody who's going back to school. Whether you're 16 or you're 60, you have an opportunity to invest in yourself, invest in your education, discern where God is calling you to go, and then equip yourself to be confident and competent, saying yes to his calling. So that's what we're going to focus on the rest of our journey. This is not a one-time event. We are focusing on this through a series that we're calling Called. And this series is going to start with discovery. So we're going to have a number of episodes where we talk about discovering your call. Then we're going to get into choosing your path. Once you've made that process of discovery, you're going to choose a program and choose a partner. So a program could be a major, it could be a certificate program, it could be the next step in your education journey. A partner is going to be the institution. What's the delivery method for that program? And then finally, the third step, we're going to have a couple of episodes focused on investing wisely. So we're going to talk about how to get other people who care about you, other people who share your passion and vision, to pay for your education for you. We call those scholarships. And scholarships aren't just for athletes. They're not just for students with a 4.0. They're not just for high school graduates. Scholarships are for people. They're available for people just like you. So we're going to talk about what kind of scholarships can help other people pay for your education. And then the last piece of it is going to be talking about return on investment. If we're thinking about this program, if we're thinking about your education process with the end in mind, we want to know, how are we going to get a return on that investment? Not just for us, but for God who has called us to this. And so let's talk about that first step today. Let's spend a few minutes talking about discovering your calling. You know, the idea of calling is commonly associated with the word vocation. The word vocation comes from voca, which or voice. It comes from this word that has to do with being called. And so when I talk about that God has called you to something, that you're going to discover your calling to decide where to go next in your education journey, I'm not just talking about ministry. Who you are is tied to what you are called to do. It's a symbiotic relationship. Whether you're going into ministry or you're going into the marketplace, God has called you to something. What you do flows out of who you are. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God says, "Let us make mankind so that they may rule." What we do always and since creation has flows out of who we are. So the same thing is true for you. This idea of vocation, this idea of calling is not just for ministry. So we're going to talk about discovering your call in two ways. First, by discovering your design, and next, by discovering your desire. Discovering your design is one of the key aspects of not just education, not just choosing a career, but of discipleship to Jesus. John Mark Comer says one of the key tasks of apprenticeship to Jesus is discovering our identity and calling. So if we're gonna go on this process of self-discovery to set us up for success in education, to set us up for success in our career, if we go on this discovery process, we want to start with prayer. Greater self-awareness will always be born from greater God awareness. John Calvin said that knowledge of God and knowledge of self are so intertwined that it's difficult to tell where one begins and the other ends. So in discovering who you are, let's look at who God created you to be. Turn to God in prayer. Earnestly seek what he's calling you to do and be open to the ways that he's prompting you. We're going to talk about that a lot in our next episode when we talk about discovering your desire. But a great place to start is by asking people who they see you to be. Seek wise counsel. Ask people, what am I good at? Ask that question of yourself and start to make a list of things that you have found yourself to be good at and ways that you've preferences that you've found in yourself in work and in school. Go on this journey of self-discovery with an open mind and seek wise counsel, or think about what other people have told you, important people, meaningful people in your life, teachers, parents, pastors, people who care about you and want the best for you. What have they shared with you about you? And beyond that, look for tools. There's a number of tools that can reveal something about your design in the way of personality. The DISC or the DISC, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, these all reveal something about the way that we approach the world, how we prefer to communicate and be communicated with, how we show up in terms of decision-making processes and preferences. All these things tell us something about ourselves, and they can reveal something about what God intends for us. One tool that I'm especially fond of when it comes to thinking about education, thinking about calling, is StrengthsFinder. There's a tool from a gentleman named Don Clifton where he unpacks and creates a resource for us to discover the unique strength that we have And his theory, the science behind his program is that by focusing on what we're good at, we'll be exponentially more successful and more productive than by focusing on our weaknesses or focusing on other areas. So StrengthsFinder is a great tool to discover what you're good at. And if it's something you're interested in learning more about, we actually put on a seminar through Destiny School of Leadership called Discover Your Strengths, where we use the strength science and the Gallup StrengthsFinder tool to help you discover some of those things. So I'm going to provide a link. You can find out more on our website. We're going to have a strength seminar coming up on April 6th at Destiny Church in De Pere, if that's something you're interested in. So all of this process that we're journeying on of self-discovery is designed towards discovering what God is designed us for and what he's calling us to. And I want you to know that that process. I use the term process because it is a process. It's not an event. So I want to kind of conclude with these two thoughts about the process. The first is the importance of patience. Don't be in a hurry. There's no time limit on good discernment. On the other hand, lots of poor decisions are frequently made in a hurry. So just take your time, turn to God in prayer, work your way through this process and see what he reveals to you with an open heart and an open mind. And the second piece of it, so that's patience. The second piece of it is perseverance. Stay committed to the choices that you've made in God's constellation. Stay committed to the choices that you've made in your discernment process, even after the feelings that you initially made them in have left you. Understand that fear, frustration, and worry are natural feelings. But those feelings aren't from God. It's actually a part of the journey. Remember the choices that you made in a spirit of faith and hope and love, and stay the course. If you hang in there with God and you come out the other side, you come out changed from the core of your being out. You come out a little beat up, but at the same time, you come out changed at a soul level. And so that's what this process is about. It's about preparing you to be the person that God has called you to be. So that requires patience and that requires perseverance. So again, I'm excited to continue this discussion with you guys about discovering your call. Next time we're together, a month from now, we're going to start these the first Wednesday of each month, we'll release a new episode. And the next one is going to be focused on discovering your desire. After that, we'll get into choosing your path, choosing a program, and choosing a partner, and then investing wisely. And what you have to look forward to is not just short conversations with me like this, but I'm actually going to be bringing in subject matter experts, people who have navigated this process for themselves, people who've studied it, people who work in higher education, and they can share the best tools and the best thoughts around choosing a program, choosing a partner, and around financing that decision. So I look forward to introducing you to some of those great people and talking more as we continue the conversation. So thank you so much for joining this first episode, and I can't wait to see what God does with the rest.